Hey community, welcome to our sermon podcast for wanderers, seekers, and thinkers, for deconstructing and reconstructing. This is a feed of Open Door Church, a faith community focused on God's love and grace, a progressive church built around action, community, and people. Enjoy this week's message and check back often as we're posting new content every week. So I do this, I think, every year. I might skip it sometimes because I'm not that excited about it, but I just feel like it's a good thing for us to look back at 2019 and say, does that make this the church, state of the church for 2019, or is it 2020 because it's 2020 now? I don't know. I don't think it matters, does it? Anyway, to look back at 2019 and say, how is this, like, how are we doing, what happened, and not everyone was here for all of 2019, so that seems significant. But then also a look into 2020 and what we're doing and what we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to be as a church and stuff. So I thought I would share a little bit about where we've been, and then a little bit about where we think we're going, which changes all the time, of course. But first things first. Some of the things that we talked about, I don't always do this, but for 2020, we had sort of a consistent theme, even if it didn't feel like it. On Sunday mornings, we spent our time really talking about how to build stronger relationship and community. So we spent the first 3 months talking about shalom and what that means and what the word is and what God is consistently asking the people to do throughout Scripture, which is to be a part of bringing shalom and peace and restoration to the world around us. And then ultimately, I think it's fair to talk about shalom in this way of God really working to bring shalom to both community, but also holistically, like we talk about reconciliation or restoration. And then we just carried that through. We talked about our values for about 6 weeks, which all come back to this idea of restoration and bringing peace to the world around us, not in like a war and peace kind of way, but in a holistic kind of way. And then we talked, what else did we do? We did Romans for 3 months, which had elements of that all the way through it. And then we talked about dialogue and this idea of really bringing a different perspective to the way we view life, but also our relationships and the way we talk to people and with people. And then we did Advent. I don't know where that fits in, but I feel like it probably still fits into Shalom. So that was kind of our thing. We unveiled this year sort of a renewed set of values. They have a lot of the same language that we were already talking about and talking through, but the board and like additional leadership folk like me, I'm not on the board, but help, spent like a year working through what is Open Door and what does it mean one, because this is strange. What does it mean to be a value-centered church instead of a doctrine-based church? So you look through our website, we don't have doctrines, right? There's no list of things you have to believe that we make you sign on the dotted line when you want to be a member. Speaking of, if you'd like to be a member, come talk to me. Now's the time because our AGM comes up in April, and then you got to have 3 months membership to vote, and I think you should be able to vote if you're around. Side note. And all of that to say that it's a different thing. And so we had to talk about what does it mean that we're value-centered, and what does this look like, and how do we do life as a community, as a church, as in this journey together if we don't have a set of beliefs? Because churches typically have this set of things, and this is who we are. We believe this. That's what gives us our glue to church. And when we have a set of values instead of that, and one of those values, by the way, we started with, we just put the word journey, meaning that you make your own journey. And you make your own theological decisions, and we walk through things together, and we have different beliefs in our faith and different ideas about what we're supposed to be doing, and all of that is about your journey with God and through Scripture and through life and with community to determine that. So for me to stand up here and tell you this is what you have to believe takes that journey away from you. And I don't think that makes sense. And so that's one of the reasons that value-centered is where we're sort of, the language we're sort of using. So we had journey, inclusion. These are all sort of cheeky because you can't do these things without a bit of theology behind them. So we call them values, but there is some theology work behind it that we do. That's a side note. Lots of side notes this morning. And so we talked about inclusion and what it means to respect another's journey and where they've come from and who they are. And we looked at the stories of Jesus that where he walks in and immediately, everywhere that he goes, has these mini moments of restoration and reconciliation where he brings people back into community, where he includes them when they weren't being included and welcomed where they weren't being welcomed and seen where they weren't being seen. And so that, and then our third was love. And we talk about that in a lot of different ways, but ultimately taking the love of God and having that as one of our, as a church, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but you know why we have to put that as one of our values, that we're going to make the love of God at the center of what we're doing and where we're going. And then we had a strange one that snuck in right at the end of our discussion on values. It comes up everywhere we go, but subversive, which is really an adverb and doesn't belong in this list of otherwise adjectives and verbs. But anyway, the idea that, again, everywhere you look throughout Scripture, you see God undoing what systems and social structures have told us we're supposed to be doing. And as Jesus undoes cultural norms and changes the way that we read the laws of the Hebrew Scriptures, all of it has this subversive element to it. And so when we walk out into the world, we want to carry that with us. And as a church, when we go out into the streets to serve food or to sit down and have conversations with people that are on the margins of our communities, that there's a subversive element to it. It's not just to give somebody a meal. There's value in that, but there's a subversive element in seeing value where others don't. And then finally, that wraps everything in a nice little bow, this idea of restoration and bringing things into wholeness, whether that's individuals, us, or it's our churches, or it's our community as a whole, that ultimately where we are seeking to restore and to build and to bring into this holistic health of all life. So that's what we did, and I spend some extra time there to say this is a bit of who we are and where we're trying to go. And so as we look into 2020, we take that work that we've done on who we are and our values and what it means to be inclusive, and we run with it. And we take those and we sit down and go, okay, well, what does church look like if these are our values? What does our next event or our next conversation or our next encouragement for you to do personally look like if these are the things that we hold in as valuable in the way we do things? We had a couple of community events that went really well. Our Easter egg hunt that has now become a tradition that we do every year, and I think we're on like 9 or 10. No, can't be on 10. I think we'll come up on 9, something like that. years in a row that we've done this Easter egg hunt, and it's kind of hit its max volume because the park can't hold more kids, and we literally can't buy more candy. We go down to the States to buy the candy for this Easter egg hunt because they don't. This makes sense, but you don't sell bags of candy large enough here for us to buy that much candy. I don't know why that is. You can draw your own conclusions, but it's very easy to go to the States and get bags of candy that look like this, and come back here and get boxes of candy that look like this. And that's so anyway, it's awesome. But one of the things is, so we're taking our values and we're looking at what are we doing, and the idea of pulling our community, and what I love my most favorite thing about that event, and the same with the Grinch, which also we had 230 sittings at the Grinch photos last month, and what I love about those is hearing people that live just around the corner from us talk to their neighbor who might live next door or 2 doors down, and you will hear the conversation happen in the park where they go, oh, hey, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in forever. 2 doors down. But they rub shoulders at a community event that charades as something like a big party, but really is this moment where our community is able to be outside and rub shoulders with one another and tell stories about life and build bonds and relationships. That is the restorative part of the things that we want to be and do here at Open Door. We spent a lot of time on the streets this year, working to provide meals. And I probably speak about this different than the others that are helping us make this happen. But I think about the meals only as a gateway to restoring community. You see, you think about someone that lives in a tent, can't walk through a store without being followed, greets every single person that comes across them with this giant question mark of, is this a friend or is this an enemy? Because there's nothing in between in their life. Somebody is either going to be hostile and throw things out their car window at them, or they're going to be loving and kind and generous to them. That's how they interact with the world. And so my interpretation, our purpose of taking that food is to have this moment of connection, this moment of restoration that begins to say, we're in this community, we're in this world, in this journey together, even though our experiences are very different. And then we had a couple of connection events throughout the year. So we have Fellowship of the Flight, which ran all through 2019 and is one of the few things that I can count on here that people will show up. It might be because we're providing beer, and which is where it started. I said, if we buy beer, I think people will show up. But it is this common place where we find community and build relationships. And one of the best comments that I've heard throughout our whole time there came several months ago. We were sitting down and we were talking about. We actually had some people that hadn't been before, but they showed up and wanted to. And so we were doing introduction kind of things, and it turned to what is church. And someone was like, well, I don't do a lot of Sunday morning stuff, but this, getting together in fellowship over a drink, talking about life and faith, this is church. And so those are moments that happen, that you can't, I don't know. We can't do that. That occurs because we're coming together as a community and life happens together. And then gather is our other one that's been consistent mostly. You could do a better job of showing up, but for the most part, it's been really great. For those that show up, it's really great. And the funny thing is that too is one where when we were looking through values and we were asking about like what are we supposed to be doing as a church, people will say in those conversations, well the potluck gather thing that we're doing, that's what church should look like. And I just don't have the energy to put a spread of breakfast out every Sunday. We did that once. It was very successful, but it's a lot of work. Side point. But that is where we build relationships. That is what church looked like. And you read through Acts and you read about the early church and breaking bread. We've now set some elements aside and we say we're breaking bread. But breaking bread has a second meaning, which is to literally sit and eat together, do life together. And so those are those events that we continue for that purpose. And we started those to build stronger relationships and to find that glue that goes beyond our passing, hey, how's it going on Sunday morning, that sometimes falls short of genuine intentionality kind of a thing. Anyway. We did lose a couple of families midway through, one to the island that was on our board, the Colemans, and things like that. And that's sort of like this constant story of ODC, of growth and loss and growth and loss. And I don't know if that's all churches or just the transient nature of Open Door, but that's part of life. I want to, instead of just giving you a report, which is kind of boring now that I do it out loud, but I want to go back to one of our scriptures from last week, Ecclesiastes 3. And just think about, just for a moment, these events and these things that we sort of have taken as 2019 as sort of markers of what's happening in the church and what we're doing, and take this idea of the preacher, of Kohelet, of this teacher, and think through what it has to do with where we're at and where we're going. He writes, probably a he. We don't actually know, but let's be honest. It was a different time. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. The author is using these words of opposites, not really to explain specifically that there is a time for throwing away stones, which I think is at the river when you're skipping, and to gather stone, maybe right before you're skipping the stones. I'm not sure. But it's not his point. His point really is that life has these ends to it. And we think about faith, and we talk about this from time to time, the ups and downs of life. And usually, when we talk about those, we talk about the high tide, the time when we're feeling healthy or happy or engaged in the world or at peace with the way things are. And we go, this is me, this is what faith is supposed to look like. Or we think about that upward journey of constantly finding and learning and growing. And yet there is a season, or there is a time when we're coming down off of that high, where life doesn't feel like it fits together quite right, where we're frustrated with the work that we do, or we're frustrated with the world that we see, or we're confused with really difficult questions about who God is or what it means to follow faithfully. And those things send us sometimes into a season of frustration or doubt or despair. And the author here is trying to say those highs and those lows are all part of life together. Those highs and those lows are all a piece of the two sides of the same coin that we call life. And usually, typically, I could get myself into trouble here, we take faith and we take God and we take the story of reconciliation and we take the story of Jesus and we tell it like it ramps up to a never-ending, amazing point of high. Like it's supposed to stop there. But life doesn't work that way. And the author's statement here is that you lose what happens in life if you're only looking for that glory when you're at the top. You miss out on the lows and where God moves in those moments of darkness and how your community functions around you in times of struggle and the way that mourning brings families together. You lose those pieces if everything is about the highs. And so the author takes this and then reflects on it. We have all these seasons, and it's not just about the seasons, it's about the fullness of life, and then has a bit of futility to it, saying, so everything is suitable for its time, and you cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. But then the statement that follows is his analysis. And I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. Not the highs. Notice that it's that totality, and that he's just spent 16 lines, 7 sets of things, something like that, of things that are good and things that are bad. But in all of our toil, we take pleasure, is the statement. That is, find and engage throughout the ups and the downs. So as we look back at 2019 as a church, but also individually, it's fair to look at things that went really well, which is mostly all I talked about, but to also identify the things that didn't go well, and to think about how church and community is to function in the ups and the downs. When people walk away, we know that this isn't the perfect church, period, full stop, but also that it's not the perfect church for everyone that walks in our doors. And that has to be okay if we respect people and we respect their journey and we're willing to be welcoming. It also means that those doors open both ways, the open door. That's part of the teacher's point in saying that there are these ups and there are these downs and there is a time for this and there's a time for that. It's also a statement about engagement. Several years ago, we took on Miroslav Volf's book, A Public Faith, and he spends, 300 pages simply talking about what does it mean to engage your faith in a public setting. And the church is that. It's how do we engage faithfully the world around us, the faith within us, and the community that comes together. How do we engage at the top and at the bottom of those highs and lows? How do we engage when the programs that we set up don't work? So we cut 2 monthly events that we were doing on a regular basis this year as well. So how do we think about, how do we engage what it means that didn't work? Or that we are looking for something else, or that, how do we look to an engaged faith in 2020? That's kind of what I want to do with this passage. What does this look like? How do we take those values, live in them, breathe them, create church around them? So one of our first tasks of 2020 is to look at this thing that's happening now and say, if we didn't have the traditional structure of the evangelical church that says, welcome, song, communion, song, announcements, message, song. If we didn't have that to just lay back and go, that sounds right, what does church look like? That's one of our first tasks of 2020 is take our values that we've been working on and say, now what? Hopefully, it doesn't send you running, but maybe. I get mixed feedback when we do weird things. So in personal life, but also in the church, what does an engaged faith look like? And how do we take solace in the fact that God is present and working in the highs and the lows? We often will sit at a funeral or a memorial service, and we have these little things that we say. As someone who gets to help with those on a regular basis, I hear them often. Oh, it's a shame that this is what it takes to get us all together, but it's really nice to see you. God's working in that. We don't want to we don't want to skip that piece of life because it's painful. We want to figure out how to engage it. And for the church in 2020, God works in change. God works in new ideas and new life and new community members. God works in the loss of community members as well. How do we engage those moments with intentionality and purpose and beauty so that we don't miss all the stuff in between our really excited Grinch photos? Right? That's what church community is. Thanks for listening to this sermon podcast from Open Door Church. Our intro and outro music was created by Lee Rosevear. and is used under a Creative Commons by attribution license. Have a great week. Ask the hard questions and explore God's love. Everyone is always welcome to join the journey with us at Open Door. Learn more at opendoorfamily.ca. That's opendoorfamily.ca.